Hello lovely people, I'm back. My name is Alethea Thomas and welcome to my channel. If you are into books and bookish content, then you are in the right place. Let me put my drink to the side. Goodness gracious. So it is finally feeling like autumn. The first day of autumn has not actually happened yet. We kind of had an Indian summer going on in the Midwest a little bit. But it seems to be at an end now. It was so sweltering hot last week, but now it's kind of cooling off into the lower 80s, 70s weather. And this morning it was actually like in the 50s outside, which I was shocked. I was like, oh, there's actually a crispness to the air now. I am amazed. So with that comes, what do you read in August? Because August is a fabulous time to start picking up more books and reading because you want to be inside more. And I'm excited for that too. I love being inside more than anything else, I think. I like being outdoors, don't get me wrong. It's so much fun. I enjoy the summer months. But after a while, it gets kind of tiring and you're ready to just hunker down for a few months out of the year and chill and rest. Because I think resting is so important to so many aspects of people's lives, your health. It's a good time to just chill and read. So here are books that I would recommend to my friends, to my family, to all kinds of people to pick up and read during this time of year because I think that they're, one, cozy. I think, two, that they represent fall in some kind of a way. They may not take place in the fall. A lot of these do, actually. But I think that atmosphere is represented in these books very well. And I enjoy them. I enjoy them so much over the years, just kind of reading and picking up new things, and over time just enjoying more and more cozier books, cozy mystery books, classics, classic horror. All kinds of books are going to be represented here. I actually ended up putting one thriller in here too because I thought, hey, this definitely has autumn vibes to it, and I think it could be really good for somebody else. Not necessarily my favorite, but hey, there you go. So let's go ahead and get right to the actual recommendations. So I'm going to start with classics, and that's going to also include classic horror. Then we're going to go into fantasy books and books that I would recommend anyone if they're looking for fantasy-wise. Then I'm also going to recommend one thriller at least, and collections of materials that I think are really good, book collections. So I think that kind of covers it. So let's like I said, let's get started. So classics. The first two that I am going to recommend are from the Bronte sisters. So Emily Bronte wrote Wuthering Heights, and her sister Charlotte wrote Jane Eyre. Both of these books are so good to read during the fall. They have atmospheres about them that just scream autumn, scream cozy. They have mysteries going on in them They are gothic. They're so good. It's just all of the things that I associate with autumn are in these books. So I totally recommend picking up the Bronte sisters' best works. I think these are their best works. Now, I haven't read the rest of the catalog of the Bronte sisters yet, but I'm working on it. I do plan on trying to get at least one or two in pretty soon, probably next year, though. Mostly I'm interested in Villette, but for this autumn, these are the ones I would recommend for sure. Next, another classic I would recommend is actually Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. This, again, is very atmospheric, very gothic. I don't remember if it actually takes place during the winter, but it takes place in England, and London especially has a very gothic atmosphere to it, so the imagination sort of runs wild. There's a mystery going on in here. It's a really interesting tale. Some people really love this book. I didn't particularly like it that much just because it wasn't my cup of tea. I tend to not like Charles Dickens in long form, I think. But otherwise, Charles Dickens is a fabulous writer. I have nothing wrong with the writing. I just wasn't interested in the story he was telling here. So, but it like I said, it has a good atmosphere, interesting plot to a degree, and I would recommend people read this during the autumn. The next book, we're going to go into classics of horror. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I think that if you like horror, you like, scary fiction, or you're interested in the history of horror, you should definitely be reading this one if you have not already. Interesting story. The plot is just, it grabs you. It's enticing. The whole story about the monster is fascinating to read. Humanity explored, what it means to be human, what it means to be a monster is explored in here, and it's just, to the audience of the time, horrifying, scary beyond beyond belief. Scary beyond belief. Just really good too. So please, if you have not already, read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Another classic horror, Dracula. Why wouldn't you want to read this during the autumn months, especially in the month of October? This is the vampire story, the most famous vampire story. So if you are into vampires at all, read Dracula. It's actually a very readable book. It is told through documents. It's told through letters and newspaper clippings and just different types of documents. It's a very unique style, and I love it. And it's a very good example of this sort of style, which I am totally forgetting what the style is called, but is an extremely good example of this style, and it's really great to read. It goes by very quickly, too, once you get into it. So check out Bram Stoker's Dracula. Another horror, this one a bit more modern, but I do think is really good and could be read in the months of August, is Perfume, the story of a murderer. Very interesting book, very engaging book. The murderer's story is told through his own perspective, and you are told by the narrator, just everything that goes on through this particular murderer's mind, the smells, the tastes, the feelings, the atmosphere. It's almost TMI, some of the thoughts that this guy has. It's really a very good book. I don't know if I ranked it a 4-star. I think I did rank it a 4-star. Very interesting. The ending is interesting too. After sitting on this one for a little while, because you end up hating this guy so much. You want him to be thwarted, and it just doesn't happen. But how it ends, it's almost satisfying in a way how this ends. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it at all, but if you're interested in a story from the perspective of a murderer, check this one out. It's really interesting. This is by Patrick Suskind. I think that's how you pronounce it, the Suskind. Then I was going to actually talk about some books that I feel like are kind of in that academia and dark academia world. So, Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. It starts out as in an academic setting, which is why I kind of put it under the academia umbrella. This is not dark academic. You may be able to make an argument for that, though. I would call it dark academic. Maybe. The plot becomes darker as it goes on, but it's, that growing up, becoming who you are in life, the world kind of going on, and then of course the consequences of life and death and all of that are talked about in this book, and frankly how people deal with that in their lives is in this book. So it's really good. There's a lot of English witticism in here and just snarkiness, and I absolutely adore that kind of writing. So if that's the sort of thing that's up your alley, I would definitely pick this up. Very, very British. I will say that. Very British for sure. But pick it up if you're interested in that. Then The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I have this little old copy. Who printed these books? They're the ones I think this is the one that I've had since high school, and it's got like water damage to it. It's really bad. But it's, the little brown books. You can find these everywhere. But The Catcher in the Rye, classic story. Holden Caulfield. He goes to school, he ends up leaving school, and he hangs out in New York. And all of the things that happen during that, it's Holden dealing with life and death and growing up and having to deal with his emotions, having to deal with the things that have happened in his life, how sad he is, depression, anxiety, all of these things are discussed in The Catcher in the Rye. Some people find it controversial. I don't. Some people don't like Holden Caulfield either, but I love Holden Caulfield. I think that he's a character to be pitied, and he is a character to... I almost commiserate with Holden throughout this whole book. It's a very good book. I think everybody should read it. I'm glad that they had us read it in high school, and then I read it recently again a couple years ago, and I love it. It is a masterpiece, I find. So if you like that, read it. Very good. Then The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is the quintessential dark academia book, and it still has the sticker on it. I don't like that. I'm going to take this 50% off sticker off of it. Oh, Lord. Anyway, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Very good book. The word choices, the prose, the language used in this book, very impressive. I was so impressed with Donna Tartt with this book. I wanted more after it was finished. I wanted more explanation of things. I wanted to just know more. There were a couple chapters in this book that I felt almost like could be cut out, just because the things that were happening to the main character were so awful. But it all turned out okay in the end for the main character anyway. And it's just very academic. It's very atmospheric. It's a joy to read to me. I actually can't wait to pick this up again and reread it. So that is that. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a ghost story. It is fascinating ghost story. The beginning of it, the first, I want to say 2, 3, maybe 4 chapters are a little slow. It kind of put me off at first, to be honest, especially chapter 1, because chapter 1 was just, this is the place. This is the atmosphere. And it is describing everything about this house, the driveway, the foliage, the fauna. I mean, everything was described. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this what this kind of book is? Is this what this book is going to be? Because if this is what this book is going to be, I'm out. I'm not reading every little nook and cranny of the Mines of Moria, or I'm not reading every little stone and thing going on in The Return of the King, because I had had enough of, J.R.R. Tolkien got to that level. Is what the first chapter of this is like. And the rest of the book is not like that at all. It's very good. And you just kind of, it's the build up to coming to the actual manor house is what kind of takes a while, and the actual ghost story itself. So, Rebecca is so good though, so well written. I love it. I want to read it over again. I want more of Rebecca, to be honest. The ending of this book just blew me away, and I was like, what? No, this can't be it. This can't be the end. There has to be more. And, there's not. There's just not. But it's so good. So good. Please read this. It's very good. So we'll move on to the thriller that I would recommend for this month, because it does happen in the month of October. And talks about the cold air and all of that sort of thing. So Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment. It is not fast-paced as far as a thriller goes. But I did think the story was rather interesting and kind of fun. And you don't really know what's going to happen until the end of the book. So there you go. It's interesting. It's a mystery. It does keep you entertained. So I would say for sure, if you were looking for a thriller, then go ahead and check this one out. You might enjoy it way more than I did. Let's move on to fantasy books. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any of these fantasy books in print form, which I need to fix that. So I'm going to be displaying them right here as usual. The first fantasy, I guess witches are fantasy. The first fantasy book that I would actually recommend for the months of August, A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkins. This is an excellent book, especially the first book of the series. You don't even need to read the rest of the series as far as I'm concerned. The first book is so good. I loved it. It was my jam. Everything about it was so atmospheric and Augusty and fall-like and just wonderful. I didn't want to stop reading this. I didn't want to put it down. I loved it. I absolutely adored this book. And it got a 5 stars from me. Now, if you are not into witchy vibes or vampires or anything like that, I probably would say go ahead and skip it. It's not that important. But, this is like a really grown-up, I've heard other people call it like this, a really grown-up version of Twilight. And that's around the time that it came out is when Twilight was also out. So, really good book. I would highly recommend you read it. So go forth and read on that one. Then I recommend The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book is all atmosphere. Wow, it's all atmosphere. And I think I didn't really get it at first when I started reading it, because you're not given all of... You're not told the whole story, really. When you get into it and you sit down, you're pretty much thrown into the middle of things, and you're trying to piece it all together, I feel like. At least that's what I felt like when I read it. Basically, 2 competing magicians have adopted these children who also have magical ability. And they are, well, not adopted, maybe taken them on as apprentices. And they basically pit the two against each other. And the ring, I guess, the arena in which this, they're pitting these two against each other is this circus. And you kind of don't get what's going on at first, and then the magic is sort of explained a little bit, and then you kind of start understanding bits and pieces of what is going on. It's also a bit of a romance. The two apprentices end up falling in love with each other, and they have to kind of figure out a way to not be in the situation that they're in, basically. But it is a very interesting story, very atmospheric, a lot of fun, just a lot of fun to read. And if you just kind of let go and try not to make sense of it, then I think that you end up enjoying it a lot more. So anyway, that's The Night Circus, and it's really fun. Try that out. I think you'd love it. The next fantasy book I would recommend is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. It is such a good book. Oh, I love this book. It's so good. It has atmosphere. The characters are so cool. I like the banter between the characters. They're hilariously funny. There is a character in the book that is a demon, and he's like my favorite character of all time. He's so cool. I absolutely love him. Next to, the demon Calcifer in Howl's Moving Castle, this demon is my next favorite for sure. And then it talks about books and libraries, but the books are special and magical. Not only do they contain information, but they have personalities. The books are almost like little gremlins in a way. They don't move. They don't, they kind of do move, actually. But they don't have legs or arms or anything weird like that. But the books contain information and have magical properties on their own, and they have personalities, and it's so cool. I think it was just a really interesting idea, an interesting world to live in as well. But it's a fun book. I enjoyed it so much. There is a secondary novella that goes with it called Mysteries of Thorn Manor that really focuses on the romance between the two main characters. And it's very, very cozy and very, very cute and perfect for the fall, I think, too. So I think that you would probably enjoy both of those. So please pick those up and check them out. Then we kind of get more into the horror fantasy, and this is also a little bit dark academic as well. This is a really interesting twist, and I think Leigh Bardugo has done something very different than I have seen out of many other authors, that are dealing with this sort of material. And I haven't really read a whole lot of books that combine academia and like demonology in a way, which is just the coolest thing you could ever ask for. But anyway, the books by Leigh Bardugo that I'm talking about are Ninth House and Hellbent. And Ninth House is the first one in the series, and Hellbent is the second one that recently came out. Yeah, like 6-7 months ago at this point. And so good. I absolutely loved both of these books. They're fantastic. They take place on the Yale, I believe it's Yale. Yeah, it's Yale. Yes, it takes place on the Yale College campus. It is about the fraternity system, and the fraternity system is actually a front for these cults, I suppose, that are doing demonology. They're summoning demons. They're casting spells. There are ghosts. There are I think it's ghosts, like spiritual things involved in all of this going on. Ancient religion is talked about. And how these fraternities are linked to those ancient religions. None of it's true, of course. Take it as a huge grain of salt, but it's just a really interesting way of talking about it and doing it, and it's so fun, so neat. The first book was a little bit gruesome, kind of gory, still frightening in some ways, but not super scary. I don't think either of these books are actually super scary, but it's an interesting take. I've not read anything like it before, but it's a very interesting idea, really fun, again, academic. So it's got a lot of kind of fall vibes to it, and I think is really fun. But anyway, I would totally recommend Leigh Bardugo's books to anyone. I'm actually going to be reading Six of Crows, I think, soon, and Crooked Kingdom, I think, is the other book that she has out in that series, because I wanted to try those out to see if I'd like them. And then I know she's got a couple other out that I'm interested in trying as well, but we'll get to those when we get to them. Then I was going to recommend The House of Leaves. Boy, this one's different, and it's weird. And if you're looking for something really different, really weird, and to some people really horrifying, then check out House of Leaves. It is a story that kind of spirals into weirdness very quickly. The way that the text is in the book itself is strange. You actually are interacting with the book itself and, going this way and that with the book, flipping to pages, referencing things in the back. You could even do research online on the book itself to kind of direct you in which path you need to go down to really kind of figure the book out. People have done some really serious deep dives on this book as well. Nothing that I'm really interested in, to be perfectly honest. Kind of a fun concept, a fun interactive book that has a mystery surrounding it and kind of gets psychologically nuts in a way, just strange. So it did not scare me. I thought it was interesting. I thought the psychological stuff in it was really kind of funny, because the fear of being alone is one of those things that kind of comes up in it, and you're nothing around you and being completely alone. And in my mind, because I'm such an introvert and I have children all the time, that idea made me feel so calm. And I'm like, man, I would really love that. Just to be alone, even for 5 minutes. I'd love it. Maybe I'd freak out if it actually happened in real life, but to my mind at the time, I was just like, oh man, that sounds like paradise. So anyway, if you're looking for a really bizarre horror to check it out. It's kind of crazy. It's an interesting book. I've never seen anything like it. House of Leaves, check it out. You may love it. You may absolutely love it and dig it so much that you never want to put it down, and it becomes your entire life. Who knows? I think some people it has become their entire life. So the next horror novel I would definitely recommend is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. Such a good book. I, as a high schooler and into college, pretty much worshipped at the shrine of Anne Rice because I loved vampire books so much. I read pretty much every vampire book she put out. I have not read the most recent ones she put out, though. I probably need to read them, though. Anyway, Interview with the Vampire started my love affair with Anne Rice, and it's a fantastic book. It is a masterpiece. That book is so good. It is the book to read if you are interested in reading those vampire books from Anne Rice. You can just read it and then that's it. You don't have to read the rest of them. But if it interests you and you want to continue the series, you can definitely read the rest of them. All I know is that the rest of those are not on the same level as Interview with the Vampire. Interview with the Vampire tells the tale of Louis, who becomes a vampire in the early 17th century or 18th century is when Louis becomes a vampire. And he is in Louisiana in the territory, And I want to say they hadn't even gotten to the point where the territories had been sold to the Americas yet. I want to say that's what. Yeah, I want to say that that's the right time frame. But yeah, he's French, and he ends up becoming a vampire, and kind of what his life is like after he becomes a vampire. Very intriguing book, very good, and totally worth the time if you ask me. Very good book. Very, very good book. So I think that kind of concludes the horror books that I would recommend. We'll move on to collections now, and I'll be pretty brief about this. One of the collections is basically anything by Agatha Christie. I know that there are Agatha Christie books out there, that Agatha Christie collections that are out there that are very good. I think that Agatha Christie is the epitome of the cozy mystery. Sometimes it's not so cozy, but Poirot, all of the Poirot books are very, very cozy. Yeah, I adore Poirot. I listened at one time, was binge listening to all of the Poirot books. And this was at a time where I wasn't even recording anything on Goodreads, so I can't say for sure that I have listened to the entire Poirot catalog. But I'm pretty sure I've listened to most of them, and they're so good. Yeah, just so many good Agatha Christie's are out there, and you can pretty much find one that happens any time of year. Several of them happen in August, or it seems to happen in August. So I don't really remember if she ever really specifies a time of year, but either way, really, really good mysteries. Adore Agatha Christie. So I'll just leave that there. Get an Agatha Christie if you're interested in a mystery. Also, Sherlock Holmes. I have this gigantic collection of Sherlock Holmes that is everything that was printed. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and The Return of Sherlock Holmes. All of the mini books by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. All of them are wonderful. All of them are vibey. Dark, mysteries that are going on. It's a load of fun. I don't think that there is a Sherlock Holmes that ever really disappointed me. I've loved them all. And again, I think that years ago when I was working at the Caves, one of my jobs was at the Caves, but you could have MP3 players. You just couldn't, we had no signal basically on our phones, so we could have MP3 players. And I would listen to books all the time, and I think I binged through all of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle as well, the Sherlock Holmes. So totally enjoy these. They're always fascinating. They're especially good to listen to, I think. But yeah, if you're looking for more mystery, Sherlock Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is the place to go. And then I think the last kind of collection I would recommend, but I really want to recommend one play out of this. I don't really read a lot of plays, but Shakespeare Has My Heart, has always had my heart. And so I would highly recommend reading any of the tragedies by Shakespeare. Macbeth is especially spooky. I think that reading, Hamlet is especially spooky. Maybe King Lear as well is quite spooky. King Lear kind of goes through an existential crisis, though, to be perfectly honest. So, Richard III is probably a really great book to read in autumn. Thinking on what else could possibly be really good, but yeah, there's a lot of good Shakespeare's, especially his tragedies. Maybe not the histories so much, but definitely the tragedies that are just fantastic to read in these kind of August months, autumnal months, heading into the winter time, just to kind of get you in the mood. In the mood. I think it's just wonderful. So I think that is it for all of my autumnal reading recommendations. I feel like that's a lot, and there was a lot here. But I also feel like that this list is very different from the other lists that I have seen on YouTube. So I know so many YouTubers, booktubers right now are putting out their recommendations for this time of year. I wanted to join the party. So I hope that you all enjoyed this, and I hope that you have found some really good material to pick up and start reading. Thank you so much again for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please do all of the things, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.